Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into something super important in the business world these days,
Yeah.
enterprise data architecture, or EDA for short.
Right.
I was just chatting with a friend who works in marketing, and she was like, managing all this customer data is a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And it got me thinking, EDA can be a game changer, right? It's
Absolutely.
like way beyond just marketing. It's like having this master plan for how a whole company uses its data. You know what I mean?
It really is. Yeah. It's like a blueprint.
The blueprint, yeah.
It provides a structure for organizing and using data effectively.
Exactly. So that's what we're diving into today, this blueprint of EDA.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to focus on three key things.
Yeah.
Levels, layers, and something called operating models.
Sounds good.
So starting with levels, I was reading, and apparently there are 7 levels of EDA.
You're exactly right.
And I like this analogy. It's like building a house.
Oh, yeah. That's a good word.
You start with the foundation,
Right.
right? And in EDA, that's the enterprise level.
This is setting that overall data strategy for like the whole company.
Yeah, you got to have that solid foundation.
So it's like deciding, hey, do we want a modern house, a traditional one, or something eco-friendly?
Totally. It sets the tone for everything else.
Okay. So foundation set. What's next?
Well, then you move up to the solution level.
Okay.
This is where you start thinking about specific projects.
Right.
Like, okay, we're building this house. Now let's design the kitchen, the living room,
Right.
each with their own, needs and stuff.
Got it. So each project has its own data plan, basically.
Exactly.
But it doesn't stop there, does it?
Nope. There's more.
There are more levels.
You got it. The next one up is the application level.
Okay.
And this is all about how does a specific software application use and manage its data?
I see.
Like your CRM system or inventory management.
Each app has its own data needs.
Right. Like how the appliances in your kitchen use electricity and water.
Okay, makes sense. But then what about the actual information itself?
Good point. Like, how do we organize all that?
That's where the information level comes in.
Okay.
It's all about using stuff like taxonomies, metadata,
Right.
to label and categorize everything so you can actually find what you need.
Like organizing your spice rack
Exactly.
makes it usable.
Okay, so we've got the data organized, but what about the actual tech behind it all?
Yeah, the nuts and bolts.
That's the technical level.
Right, like the databases, the data lakes.
All of that. It's like the wiring, the plumbing in your house.
Okay, so we've got our foundation, our rooms, our appliances, and now the actual infrastructure.
Right.
Phew. But wait, there's more, isn't there?
There are 2 more levels that are a little more advanced.
Okay, lay it on me.
First up, we've got data fabrics.
Data fabrics, right?
Think of this like a central control system for your house,
Oh, I see.
connecting the lights, temperature, security.
So it's about connecting all those different systems, breaking down those data silos.
Exactly. And then we've got data meshes. This one's even more complex.
Oh, boy. Okay.
It's for really big organizations.
Mhm.
Think of it like a system that can manage your house as it grows.
I see.
Like adding on new rooms, making sure everything still works together.
Gotcha. So data meshes are for scaling things up.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these 7 levels, starting with the foundation and getting pretty advanced.
Right.
But how do we actually organize all this data within those levels?
Great question. And that's where the layers come in.
The layers, okay.
Remember that cake analogy?
Oh, yeah, the cake.
So the top layer is the conceptual layer.
Okay.
It's like the icing. It's the pretty part.
I like icing.
Me too. It's the high-level view of what the business needs from its data.
So it's like the architect's first sketch.
Right.
Just the big picture, no details yet.
Okay. Then you've got the logical layer underneath.
Logical, okay.
This is where you get into the details, like the blueprints of the house.
Yeah, okay.
You define data structures, relationships.
So this is where you show how all the data pieces fit together.
Exactly. And finally, you have the physical layer.
Physical, the actual stuff.
This is the bricks and mortar.
Right, the actual tech we're using.
Yep. The databases, the servers, all of that.
Okay, so levels give us the structure, layers give us the depth.
I like that.
But how does a company actually put this blueprint into action?
That's a great question.
And this is where those operating models come in, right?
You got it.
And I think this is where it gets really interesting because, different companies manage their data in totally different ways, right?
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Like a startup versus a giant bank.
Exactly. They're going to have totally different needs.
Right. So there are actually different operating models for ED.
There are. And our source material highlights 4 main ones, and they basically depend on 2 things.
Okay, tell me more.
How much a company wants to standardize its data.
Right, like making sure everyone's using the same formats and all that.
Yep. And how integrated they want their systems to be.
So like how much do they want all their data systems to talk to each other?
Precisely.
Okay, so how do we visualize these different models?
Imagine a graph.
Okay, a graph, got it.
One axis is integration, how easily data flows,
I see.
and the other axis is standardization.
Okay,
And each operating model falls somewhere on this graph.
got it.
For example, diversification.
Diversification.
That's all about high independence,
Okay,
like different departments having their own systems.
right, but they still need to share some data, I guess.
Exactly. It's like each department having its own wing in our data house, but with some common areas.
I see, so it's flexible, but maybe not the most efficient.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you've got coordination at the opposite end.
Coordination.
This one loves integration.
Okay.
Like everyone's sharing a big data warehouse.
So that's like the central hub in our data house.
Exactly. Everything's connected.
Okay, so diversification is independent. Coordination is all about sharing. What about the other two?
All right, so then we have replication.
Replication.
This one's big on standardization,
Okay,
but the systems are still independent.
so it's like everyone's using the same building codes but designing their own wings.
Perfect analogy.
And the last one, unification.
Unification, okay?
High integration, high standardization.
So basically one giant system for everything.
You got it. Streamlined and efficient.
Wow, that's a lot to digest. Levels, layers, and now these operating models.
Yeah, it's a lot, right?
So what does all this mean for, our listeners out there?
Well, I think the takeaway here is that EDA is a powerful framework for managing data.
Yeah.
And it's not just for techies.
Right?
Think about your own work.
Yeah. Think about how your company uses data. What model might work best for you?
Exactly. It's all about finding the right fit.
Great point. Well, folks, we've covered a lot of ground today in the world of EDA. Hopefully you got a better understanding of how companies are making sense of all this data. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Thanks for having me.